right, we are live. Welcome to the KBAD, the Kyle Buda-Area Democrats 2022 Candidate Forum. I'm Jeff Kaufman, and I'll be your moderator tonight. David Dorr will be handling the technology behind the scenes. We have about 24 candidates, all Democrats, in contested races, and they will be laying out for you why you should vote for them in their primary. Early voting starts February 14th and goes through the 25th, and Election Day is March 1st. So a couple of candidates will not be presenting today because they're running unopposed in the Democratic primary, and those are Sandra Bryant for Justice of the Peace, Precinct 5, Elaine Brown, who is running for County Court at Law number 3, and Senator Judith Z. Zaffarini running for Senate District 21. And they all had a chance to present earlier in the KBAD member meeting just a few minutes ago. An informed electorate is critical to the functioning of our democracy. The first step in getting informed is to hear from the candidates. Today, you're going to be hearing from quite a few, and thank you for giving up part of your day to do so. Candidates will be grouped by office, so you'll be able to compare and contrast their reasons to vote for them. Each candidate will have 4 minutes to explain why you should elect them. They will introduce themselves and tell you why they are the best candidate for their races. There will be 90 seconds then for questions from the audience or from me if you haven't submitted any. If you do have questions, please submit them while the candidate is talking, because there's a 30-second lag, so that your questions take about 30 seconds to get to us so that we could be able to get them to the candidate. So please enter your questions as quickly as you can. And we will be starting with our local candidates. Let me check here and see who's in line.
Hello.
Okay, I believe we have Beth Smith, Hayes County Justice of the Peace, Precinct 2.
Yes.
And what I'll be doing, I'll be timing this, everybody, so that we can keep on a schedule here. And you'll hear this when your time is up, when your 4 minutes are up. Okay.
Got it.
Okay, so I'm going to stop that now and set it to 4 minutes and take it away.
Thank you, Jeff. I'd like to thank KBAD for the opportunity for being here this afternoon. I'm Beth Smith, your Justice of the Peace for Precinct 2 and have been for 23 years. I came to Hayes County when I was 17 years old to attend Texas State University from Houston and never went back. I started working at the city of San Marcos after I attended college as an appraiser for the city of San Marcos, and learned Robert's rules and something about government, city council, and started my family shortly after that, and moved to Mountain City, where 1984 we incorporated, and I became the mayor of Mountain City, elected the first mayor of Mountain City when I was 28 years old, because I did have experience with the city at that point. I knew that I enjoyed serving the public and was fortunate enough to be able to stay home with my children while they were small. I then started ACC, taking criminal justice classes because that seemed to be my interest, as well as substituting at Hayes High School, and enjoyed the students so much. I knew that the next step was to run for Justice of the Peace because I enjoyed the public, enjoyed the juveniles, enjoyed serving the public. During those 14 years when I was mayor, I was on volunteered for 17 boards. They all gave me resources to be able to run the Justice of the Peace office effectively, which I promised on day one and continue to do so. A JP court is very public and has public access, and it's the first court most juveniles will come in contact with, and you hope it's their last. In fact, you try to work yourself out of a job. Everything turned out to be a well fit for this position. Hopefully, the contact with the juveniles has taught them a lot. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from them. I've kept my promise to be fair and equal. I'm available 24/7, 365. It's so important for magistrate duties. It's not really a job or position as much as it is a lifestyle. It's important to know that a JP court is not a revenue-making agency. I do have the largest JP court in Hays County. It's just the way the population runs. I went from 5,000 to 65,000 and had to grow with that position. There are specific laws pertaining to that. We have so many duties. I'll just name a few of them. We handle all civil cases up to 20,000, small claims cases. We have sole jurisdiction over evictions. I handle Class C misdemeanors, including MIPs, theft under 100, truancy, used to be failure to attend school, animal seizures, hearings, emergency protective order modification hearings, gun seizures. There are so many, it's just too many to list. Of course, you have to know how to conduct a jury trial and trial by judge. And again, be fair and equal. We're fact finders in the civil cases and decision makers in the trial by judge and criminal cases. With juveniles, there's always an opportunity. I always give them a second chance. I defer all the juvenile cases that come before my court. I can't remember one that I have not, where it can be dismissed, not shown on a record. JPs issue most of the felony and misdemeanor warrants, so it's key that we understand and know the penal code and the laws and make sure the probable cause affidavits that we read do meet the four corners of the law. Last year, I issued over 850 of those warrants, which kept me very busy. We have minimal time in the actual courtroom. Most of our work is at the desk or behind out in the field. Unfortunately, I had 120 inquests, which are death investigations this year. It really didn't have anything to do with COVID. It has to do with Seton being a trauma hospital, and that we go to all unattended deaths, whether they be a fatality on the highway or a gunshot wound that's transported to Seton from another county. And we now have to we're required to take secondary PTSD classes for that. It is very mentally stressful, and of course, the most difficult part of the job. I have over 1,500 hours of continuing education. That includes contract law, real estate law, evictions, anything. We do have to have a lot of legal. I feel like part doctor and part attorney. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your patience. We had a little technical issue, and so you got to speak a little bit longer than you were allotted. But thank you for being able to fill up the time. We appreciate that.
Thank
I don't
you.
see any questions in the chat, so I'll just ask one. It sounds like this is a pretty busy job with a lot of responsibilities. Would you say it's a full-time job? And what kind of staff do you have to assist you with doing this job?
I have an excellent staff, and yes, it's more than full-time. It is, again, 24/7, 365. Sometimes I work 15 hours a day. Sometimes I work 18 hours a day. Just depends on what's going on. I could get called out for an inquest investigation at midnight and be out for 4 or 5 hours in the field, be it a homicide, and still have to be in court the next morning at 8 o'clock. My constituents expect me to be there from 8 to 5. My clerk is very well trained, very professional, and they're trained to treat people with respect, the same as I do, and they're customers. We have a great customer service team. They are definitely the backbone of the court.
Okay,
any other
thank you.
questions? Be happy to answer anything.
I don't see any other questions in the chat, so I just want to thank you, Judge, and thank you for your service, and we will move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the next candidate that we'll be hearing from is Dr. Michelle Gutierrez Cohen, and I will let her do the introduction.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for having me. And thank you, KBAD, for holding this forum. I'm really excited to be here. So, first of all, my name is Dr. Michelle Gutierrez Cohen, and I am running for Hayes County Commissioner Precinct 2. One thing I want to say, as you are deciding who to vote for in this Democratic primary, vote for someone who you believe is qualified to do the job, also has demonstrated democratic values, and is running for the right reasons. For me, I have over 20 years of supply management experience. I have worked 7 years with the state of Texas as a state purchaser and contract manager. That means at one time I was able to commit funds on behalf of the state, have an understanding of procurement policies, and can initiate RFPs and analyze suppliers. I have worked the past 5 years at the Texas Comptroller as a trainer, training state employees how to use financial systems with the state, and doing this on a virtual platform, which shows you my ability to accommodate and pivot when needed. I have a bachelor's in business with a concentration in finance, an MBA, and a doctorate in management and organizational leadership. I currently sit on the Facility and Bond Commission with Hayes CISD. I am a current PTA president of Tobias Elementary, former member of the Kyle Ethics Committee, have sat on 2 school rezoning commissions, am the former chair of the Hayes Democratic Candidate Committee, received the 2021 MLK Service Award from the Hayes Democratic Party, and a nominee for the 2021 ABLA Awards for Latina Leadership. I am a grassroots organizer who founded an organization as a direct response to the racial disparities of COVID against Latinos in Hayes County. And through my organization's work, I have truly seen the lack of resources for our communities of color and rural areas of the county, from the lack of access to resources to protect them and the basic community infrastructure to even provide them. I have lived in this county for a combined 30 years. And much has changed, but some things have not, such as the conditions of the roads on the east side of the county. And with the rapid growth of the county, it is hard for us to keep up, I believe, with the growth and fixing the infrastructure here. So there are 3 things that I am concerned about: is public health and safety of our community, the improved road infrastructure, and smarter economic growth. I am running for the right reasons, and as you contemplate your choice for which Democrat to support in the commissioner's race, think of who has the best chance to take the seat in the general election. I believe I have the best chance to beat any Republican in the general, and remember, I did not wait for an election to do something for my community. I've been doing my part to save lives and provide resources in any form to my community. As a Latina, I have always been underestimated, meaning that I have to work harder to achieve my goals. But that is where my strength comes from. I appreciate your time. My name is Dr. Michelle Gutierrez Cohen, running for Hayes County Commissioner Precinct 2, and I hope I have your vote.
Thank you, Michelle, and I appreciate your coming in a few seconds under. You still had a few minutes left.
Awesome.
I will, a few seconds anyway. I will give you a question. I don't see any in the chat right now, so I'll just ask one. I know with the redistricting, Precinct 2 has changed quite a bit, and I'm wondering, did you freeze? Okay, you're back. You're back.
Yeah, it's fun a little there.
Just for a second. Okay. Thank you for I don't know if you heard the question. I'll just repeat it.
No.
With the redistricting, Precinct 2 has changed quite a bit. And this used to be the precinct run by the cowboy commissioner, if you remember that guy. He likes to go by that name, that moniker. How would you say that the precinct has changed now with the redistricting, and why do you think you're the best person to represent that change?
Okay, well, this new precinct is over 50% Latino. And it covers a lot of the east side and a minor portion on Plum Creek. And I believe in true representation. And we haven't had true representation for a long time in this county. And that's what I'm fighting for. I have been in the east side areas helping the community get basic resources. And I have seen firsthand the lack of just basic conveniences for the community and what they have to go through. And I think that I am the right person for this job. I've been doing the work for almost 2 years in the area, providing resources through my organization. And I am passionate and I want to get to work. I'm ready to take my leadership to a different level and actually start changing and policies to benefit everyone in the community, especially the underserved and the communities of color.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't see any other comments in the chat, so we will thank you for your service. Thank you. Next up is going to be Richard Pepe Cronshey, running for the Hayes County Commissioner of Precinct 2. We'll get your name on the board there. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Cronshey, and you'll have 4 minutes. I don't think you were here when I was telling folks the ground rule, but you'll have 4 minutes to speak, and there'll be 90 seconds for follow-up questions, either from me or from the watchers who are watching on Facebook. So I'll go ahead and get you started, sir.
Thank you very much for having this forum and for KBAD doing this. My name is Richard Cronshey, and I'm running for County Commissioner Precinct 2 in the Kyle and Buda-Area. I've been a resident of Precinct 2 for over 30 years. On a personal note, I'm a father of 4 and a grandfather of 9. And as a professional educator, counselor in math and science for over 3 decades in Hayes County and surrounding districts, my strong commitment to public service is my profession and is my life's work. I was a union leader for 2 decades and a Democratic Party CEC member for another 15 years. I've been a strong advocate for the underserved residents of Eastern Hayes County. And without going into various degrees in college and awards, my life's work and passion can be summed up in 3 words: strong public service. Hayes County is the 23rd largest county in the state of Texas, with a population of 1,300,000 people. And over 250,000 people live along the I-35 corridor in Hayes County. It is no longer a rural county. And Precinct 2 is no longer a rural precinct. It is suburban. Although I will be elected to represent Precinct 2, I will be one of 5 people on the Commissioner's Court that will decide all aspects of Hayes County. It's not just the roads that county commissioners deal with. That's a misconception. It is public safety, which includes health public safety, law enforcement, which is sheriffs and the jail, fire and emergency services, and transportation infrastructure. And very importantly, regional transportation, which has been neglected as a part of our commissioner's court. Not to get too wonky on you here, but math guy here, the property wealth of Hayes County is $21 billion with a B. And at a tax rate of 41 cents on the $100 valuation, that generates approximately $400 million worth of money for the Hayes County budget. There's also a lot of state and federal grant money. Government does for people that which people can't do for themselves. Individuals can't build a road or a hospital or a library. Now, this budget of $400 million is can be achieved for next year without increasing the tax rate. New developments added to the rolls is adequate to ensure a high level of services. If you're not in the city limits, Hayes County taxes are the second highest part of your tax bill. 4 parts of my platform is always safety and security of citizens. Number 2 would be get a public defender's office for those residents that need assistance. Implement a mental health facility here in Hayes County, which we do not have. And I would like to see a no-kill shelter for pets. When you add all this up, as a commissioner, I will decide on that $400 million budget, including all the money that is spent. And that's why this job is important. Character is important too, because where you spend your money and how you spend your money is a statement of your character and your morality. And when I'm elected, I will transform this job from a traditionally part-time job to a full-time commitment to helping the people along with me here. Oh, let me get to two more sentences here. That incredible passion that I had as a teacher, I'm going to bring that hard work ethic I will bring to here. So thank you very much for having me on here. County Commissioner for Precinct 2, Colin Buda. And always, as always, Richard is right for roads. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. And I don't see any questions in the chat. I'm not sure if folks on Facebook are getting questions in. I want to remind the folks on Facebook that you can enter questions on the chat and Facebook, and then they will be transferred over here to us to read to the candidate. I'm not on Facebook now, so I've got to rely on our technology guy behind the scenes, our president, David Dorr, to feed me the questions. Let me see if he just brought us a question. No questions at this point. So I'll ask you the same question I asked the previous candidate. With the redistricting, Precinct 2 has changed significantly, and I wanted to ask how you think you are the best candidate for the new precinct as it has been redrawn for Precinct 2, Hays County.
Precinct 2 has changed drastically along with Hays County in the last 10 years. Precinct 2 went from a mostly rural area to a very much, I don't want to say urban, but incredibly suburban area. I would say 95% of the voters live in what I would call suburban Hays County. So that is a big change. In the past, you mentioned the word cowboy commissioner, who treated this sort of like a part-time job, who hung out at the corner directing traffic on one intersection. The reason I got involved in this is I tried to get services for the underserved eastern Hays County. Couldn't do it. Wanted to get stoplights. Couldn't do that. Wanted to get sidewalks around schools. Couldn't accomplish that. And then couldn't even accomplish street lights. And to no avail, went to the old commissioner for many years. So I'm glad to be given a chance to represent this. And yes, this district has changed drastically.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your coming and speaking with us today, and we'll move right along to our next speaker, and we will hopefully see you later. The next speaker is Elaine Cardenas, and she is running for the Hays County Clerk position. Here we go. Hays County Clerk. The banner just went up for you, ma'am.
Okay.
And so you may not have been here, read the ground rules, but you'll have 4 minutes to give your reasons why we should vote for you. And you'll hear an alarm at 4 minutes, and then you'll have 90 seconds to answer questions.
Well, thank you. For those of you who don't know me, I am Elaine Cardenas. I'm your current Hays County Clerk and have been for several years. And I remain extremely grateful to members of KBAD for all the support you've given me over the years. And I look forward to continuing to work with you in the future. The last time I ran, I talked about what the duties are of the Hays County Clerk. But I think you might be surprised to learn how low the bar is to qualify to run for Hays County Clerk and for some of the other positions. The only requirements are that you be 18 years or older, that you be a resident of the county, and that you be free of any felony convictions. And the last two items are sometimes overlooked. I was shocked when I learned that. I don't think it's right. This is an incredibly important and critical job to you and to the county.
Ma'am, I've got to cut in for just a second. Your audio is a little bit weak. Can you talk a little bit more into the microphone, perhaps?
Well, yes.
That's better. I think that's better.
Okay, I'll get a little closer. Is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, as I was saying, the qualifications to run for county clerk are not very great, and I really think that it's an important position. that requires top level and top rate leadership and management skills. I have responsibility for some of your most important records, your births, deaths, marriage certificates, and your deeds and liens on your property, for crying out loud. And tens of millions of dollars pass through my office. So this really requires excellent management skills, especially in an county in an area that has the explosive growth of ours and the changing demographics that go along with that, as well as new threats. There are all kinds of cyber threats. Some counties have experienced ransomware attacks in recent years. We need to be prepared for those, and that requires knowledge and experience with managing large, complex organizations. I have that experience. Besides running the office successfully for several years, I also had many years of experience working as an executive for some of the world's top management consulting firms, such as, for example, Gallup. I led teams of 200 or more professionals on complex contracts, multi-million-dollar contracts that often involved collaboration with other organizations and had complex requirements and demands on them. I also have the academic training. I have an MBA and I have a doctorate. And that training gives me a knowledge of the tools that are essential to identifying weaknesses in an organization, areas where efficiencies can be improved. And it also makes me aware of the best practices for addressing those and for thinking about and planning to meet the challenges of the future and some of the threats. So I hope that I'll have your support moving forward. Some of my priorities continue to be the security of your records, number one, and number two, customer satisfaction. With regards to the security, the FBI has identified property theft as one of the fastest growing crimes in the country. And I'm not talking about your bicycle or that kind of property. I'm talking about your land and your house. So I'm going to put in place a program that will alert you whenever anybody accesses your records, your property records, so that you can intervene and take action should something mysterious occur. The second thing I want to do is to continue to improve and strengthen our customer service. We've made great strides in the last few years in making it much more accessible, but I really believe that it should be accessible to anyone who has good Wi-Fi at their convenience and anywhere they are. And that also goes for people. May I just wrap up?
Finish that. Yes, your thought, please.
Okay, that goes for people with disabilities or who speak other languages. So I hope I'll have your support in the future. You can check me out on my website, ElaineCardenas.com. Thank you.
All right, and I'm checking for any questions that might have come in, and I don't see any.
Well, I see one on my screen.
Oh, okay, there's one that popped up. Thank you.
Yes, it says, for anybody else who can't see it, what size staffs have you managed in the past? What size budgets? And what is your experience with RFPs and competitive bids? Well, I have extensive experience in all of those areas. My staff at the last place where I was vice president for survey research for a large company was more than 200 people. And I managed large teams over the years. My staff currently is 30 plus people. My budgets were, 10 million in that range or above. And I had extensive experience with RFPs and competitive bids. I ran what's called capture in the federal government, which is a procurement or business development process where you put together teams to go after large contracts. So, and I was a member of the Contract Managers Association for years. So I know the contracting process well, and many of the federal procurement regulations, although they change all the time, and very, very, very familiar with competitive practices and how to get good quality bids from people and manage them after I win them.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate your running for office, and thank you for your question and answer with us today.
Thank you.
We're going to move now to Edna Peterson, who is also a candidate running for Hayes County Clerk. And Ms. Peterson, I'll let you go ahead and start. You have 4 minutes and then 90 seconds for a question and answer.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. First of all, I have thought this over for a few years, and I do feel that this position requires someone very serious and accountable to handle all Hayes County residents' records of any sort in that office. The reason I'm running for Hayes County Clerk is because I believe this office can be done in a better way. That is, it can do better as a public servant to all Hayes County residents. I'm running for Hayes County Clerk to improve customer service and cross-train all clerks' office, have all employees in these offices trained, prove cross-training for all employees, which will allow every customer to be served anytime they enter the office. Anytime they enter the office, provide them the service that they came into the office for on that visit. I would like to establish and develop better ways to protect our customers' records, microfilm, all documents, and assess checks. Very important to be present and available to the staff and Hayes County residents to address issues or concerns they may need. This office does require someone very serious, but very much needed to be accountable for the residents of Hayes County to receive what they come into the offices for what they're wanting. The things that will be done better will be better customer service. It's the key. Consistent quality service, accountability, ensuring customer service needs be met on every visit. And then ensuring county documents are secured in a more than one way microfilm. I am running. I'm asking for my San Marcos residents to vote. Check Edna Peterson for your next county clerk. I will be accountable. There are things in that office that needs to be looked at and checked. I'm running this term. I'm asking for your vote. Things that should have been done wasn't done. Now allow me with your vote to put me in office so I can take care of what needs to be done and that hasn't been done. I'm asking for your vote. When you go to the polls, please check Edna Peterson for your next county clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So we have a question from one of the audience that has the same question was asked to the previous candidate. Can you describe, please, the size of the staff and budgets and experience that you've worked with in the past, including requests for proposals, RFPs, and competitive bidding?
I have worked with staff. I've worked with public, school districts, business, 200 or more people. I'm qualified to run an office. I'm qualified to handle budgets. I'm qualified to meet the needs of Hayes County clerks' requirements.
Okay, I'll add a question since you have about another minute left, if you'll allow me. So you talked about things that need to be improved. Can you give some examples where there were problems that you saw?
One of the biggest problems were customers coming to the office and not getting what they came there for. Their needs were not being met. accountability, being there to ensure that their needs be met on their first visit, not having to come back later because an employee was not able to do that part that customer came for. So they would have to return to get something that should have been taken care of when they first visit the office.
Okay, thank you. And are there any other questions, David, that we have? I think we addressed Heiko's question. If not, thank you very much, ma'am. Ms. Peterson, we really appreciate your coming in and speaking with us today and laying out the case why we should vote for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And next up is Ruben Bacera, Hays County Judge, currently Hays County Judge and running for Hays County Judge. And you'll have, I don't know if you heard the ground rules, you'll have 4 minutes to speak.
You got it.
90 seconds for a Q&A. So take it away, sir.
Thank you. Yes, correct. I am currently the Hays County Judge, and I am running for re-election because much work has still to be done. I first want to start with saying thank you to KBAD for not only putting this on, but for your support. 4 years ago, I was here and I was asking for your support and you gave it. And for that, I thank you. I want to talk about 3 things. 4 minutes, of course, won't cover the work, the scope, but I would like to hit 3 things that we've done that I could talk about very quickly, and you can ask me questions even after KBAD. I'm available to you always. Creating the Public Defender's Office was a very big deal to me. We helped to do this to keep those that are not yet found guilty in jail to get some proper representation. Building a mental health hospital. We want to help build this we want to help build this facility. I'm thinking of the tongue twister, Hill Country MHDD. Hill Country Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities Support. The state agency is supporting us in this process, and we're very grateful for that support. And it's very much on the rails and on its way. We're working hard on that front. Expanding voter access. We purchased vote centers, which are machines with a paper trail so that you can vote anywhere during elections. Also, we've created more early voting locations. Buda-Area, for example, in 2018 had 3 full-time locations and 1 limited access location. In 2022, quite the difference, 7 full-time locations. That takes work and perseverance and your support. To add to the transparency and accountability, I formed several boards and commissions. The Criminal Justice Commission, the Citizens Election Advisory Commission, the U.S. Census Complete Count Committee, and the Redistricting Commission, to name a few. Now on to COVID response. Yes, unfortunately, it has become a partisan issue. It was made a partisan issue way early on, and we didn't realize just how far people were willing to go for political gain. They tried to slow down testing with fake integrity concerns at the very beginning. The combination that we were promoting with medical professionals to create molecular, serological, and home testing that I proposed in 2020 became the gold standard in 2022. U.S. gold standard. Of course, we continue to provide access to masks and vaccines. There is still lots more to be done, like a centralized no-kill animal shelter to better serve the Kyle and Buda-Area, broadband for all Hays County residents, and to fix the current ineffective process of this emergency rental assistance program. Although we had to return $800,000, we still have $4.5 million to distribute, and we must be better. Listen, I encourage the democratic process. I really do. It's a very big deal. I believe no one should be a walk-on. But where was I? My opponent, however, is not a Democrat. Of the 9 county races in 2020, my opponent endorsed and campaigned for most of the Republicans on the ballot. I'll give you a couple of examples of his candidates. The sheriff he campaigned for undermined our COVID responses at every turn. His commissioner candidate created a gerrymandered map with 0 community input. During the San Marcos area Democrats meeting, my opponent lied. He lied and he said that those folks that were on the lists were not his, that they were his parents. There's too much proof everywhere that says otherwise. Just know this. Dripping Springs Democratic Action Club page reads as a list of questions to let you in the club's social media page. It reads, are you interested in helping elect Democrats? Clearly, my opponent is not. Now is not the time to play. The state is counting on Hays County to stay blue. We need a county judge that supports our Democratic candidates and values. I have proven that I am that person, and I ask for your continued trust and support. I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comments. I do want to keep this free from personal diversionary kind of tactics. Let's stay to the issues. I appreciate your comments and very much, sir. We do have a question from Judith Zaffarini. I think you can read it on the screen. I'll read it out loud. How can state and federal elected officials from either or both political parties help you serve Hays County? And you have
I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
90 seconds.
The coolest part is Senator Zaffarini was very instrumental in our COVID response. As a state elected individual at that capacity, there are huge things that I needed help from to bring resources to our county, and we received them. There are, however, other people in those same capacities reaching in through the Capitol that were trying to thwart our efforts. So, Senator Zaffarini, thank you for helping us with COVID response, from testing to masking to vaccinations, and thank you for continuing to help us on all those things of bringing federal dollars to our community. We are so grateful.
Thank you, sir. And can you see the second question? Why was the rental assistance program so inefficient? And what can the community do to help? And what can cities do to help?
So my office was the singular elected office to bring forth this item before it expired. The Commissioner's Court wanted to see this expire and go away, and we brought it and we applied for the grant so that we can capture this money. We did that, my office. Then it should have been placed in the Office of Emergency Management, since I am talking about emergency rental assistance, and I am the Director of Emergency Management. I should have had the oversight to run that operation. But with the same efforts of trying to thwart testing and trying to thwart masking and now vaccinations, it's the people we're dealing with. Sorry, that's the way it goes. They tried everything they could to diminish any bit of support to get that emergency rental assistance and utility assistance to the community and put it under a program that is so overworked. Our department head under that countywide operations is already so busy, and they put it there, I believe, to undermine the progress and the effort that could have been made. But we still have more than $4.5 million to address it. And I'm really continuing the pressure and hoping the community continues to support this pressure so that we can do better.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comments, and we appreciate your being here today.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Brandon Burleson, and he is a candidate for Hays County Judge. And Mr. Burleson, I will remind everybody that they have 4 minutes to speak and then 90 seconds for Q&A. So if you would like to start, please, sir, go right ahead.
Good evening, fellow Democrats. I'm Brandon Burleson, and I'm a candidate for Hays County Judge. Thank you for inviting me to your debate today. I'm running for Hays County Judge because I believe there is more that we can do for our citizens who are facing many challenges as a result of the growth in our county. I was born and raised in Hays County, and I graduated from San Marcos High School and Texas State University. I have worked on many political campaigns, from city council races to presidential campaigns. I'm honored to be the grandson of Rose Brooks. My grandmother has been a trailblazer in our community, standing up for equality, education, and always has encouraged me to stand up for what I believe in. I've had the privilege to work with many of you to ensure that the needs of our fellow Hays County citizens are addressed. I've been a local homeowner for 10 years and a business owner for 11 years, paying my fair share of taxes. As a business owner, I understand efficiency and innovation, and I will bring my experience to the office of county judge. We are facing issues concerning transportation, quality of life, emergency management, public health, economic development, and criminal justice reform. My top priority are saving lives with COVID vaccinations and booster shots and giving property owners property tax relief. I will increase county government efficiencies and work with local government to reduce duplication. I will continue my support on existing businesses while attracting new ones. I will work with my fellow commissioners to manage growth and development and maintain a balance between urban and rural areas, protect our air, water, open lands, and the natural beauty of the hill country. And finally, I will restore trust, honesty, and integrity and ask for your vote and your voice in the primary election and general election. Thank you. Now, I just want to, my opponent talked about, he showed you a picture, and, you know, over this whole time, he's running a dirty campaign. He's ran a dirty campaign. I signed the fair practice ethics review thing. My candidate did not do that. I've tried to run a good campaign and do right by everybody, and I'm going to continue to do that. My opponent's record speaks for itself. Anything that my opponent has done, you can go look it up. He has not represented the county well. He has no leadership qualities. I want to unite the Democratic Party. I want to bring us together so every Democrat on the ballot in November wins. Lange is a friend of our families and been a friend for a long time. Lange also has a voting record of criminal justice reform. As a young Black man, it is very important to me for criminal justice reform. It's very important. I'm a Democrat, and I've always been a Democrat my whole life. Rose Brooks is my grandmother. She's a yellow dog Democrat. All I know is a Democrat. And Kyle and Buda, I thank you for your time today. I look forward to working with you. I would love to help you with your transportation issue or whatever else you may need. I just appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak in front of you today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I did let you go on because you were name checked by the previous candidate. We're going to try to keep it to the issues, please. And so, like I say, I did want to make that an equivalent opportunity for you. So you have 90 seconds now to answer. And the first question that has come in is from Senator Zaffarini, and she says, same question. How can state and federal elected officials from either or both political parties help you serve Hays County?
Well, I think we have to be able to, I think one thing that we have to do is we have to be willing to work with both sides of the aisle. If we have government assistance, let's work with our governors. Let's work with federal officials on getting the money. Let's make sure that people have money to pay their rent. They have food on the table. Let's not send back money. Yes, we have $4.5 million left, but why haven't we dispersed it? Why are small businesses struggling? $800,000 was just gone back. We have to work, and we have to make sure that we respect everybody that sits on commissioner's court. And we have to work with them. It's not always going to be Democrat. It's not always going to be Republican. But for the most part, it's going to be bipartisan. So we have to work with our Democrats up there. We have to work with our Republicans, because at the end of the day, it's about the people of Hays County, not a county judge's agenda, not a commissioner's agenda. It's for you. And as your county judge, I will work for the people of Hays County.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Burleson. We appreciate your coming today and offering your ideas to us. Thank you very much. Next up is Mark Trahan, who is running for Hays County Democratic Party County Chair. And again, if you hadn't heard you'll hear that when your time is up. You have 4 minutes to go. Thank you, sir. Take it away.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you to KBAD for holding this forum. It's a great opportunity for our voters to learn about candidates. So thank you to the public who's joined us so that you can learn about the candidates today. My name is Mark Trahan, and I'm running to remain the chair of the Hays County Democratic Party. I was elected by the party in February of 2021 as the county chair. And over the last year, we have expanded the Democratic Party and increased involvement in county party committees by 300%. We've increased fundraising by 30%. We created a GOTV, or Get Out the Vote strategy, for Democrats for the 2022 election. And we also developed a new outreach strategy. So I didn't do this alone. How did we do this? Well, first, we drafted a set of organizational bylaws for the Hays County Democratic Party that had a new set of policies and procedures for county party operations. We created an organizational structure that expanded the county party from 5 standing committees with approximately 30 people involved to 10 committees with over 100 folks that were involved in our county party. We established a diversity committee and anti-racist policies to establish and ensure representation and diversity in the Hays County Democratic Party. We created a Get Out the Vote committee focused on energizing and exciting Democrats to go to the polls and vote. And we crafted a plan with our chair, with me as the chair, and as a group to strategize about the efforts in 2022 to ensure that we win across the board, up and down the ballot. We recruited 10 new precinct chairs. We expanded polling locations on the east side of IH-35 that has historically been underrepresented in terms of polling locations. We fought Republican gerrymandered redistricting maps, resulting in the establishment of a strong Democratic-leaning County Commissioners Precinct number 2. We developed a legislative advocacy team to help promote issues of Hays County residents and designed caucuses as a support system for that structure. We increased fundraising by 30%. We developed a centralized communication strategy for the party and for the next election cycle. And we created a new model of outreach for the community to go into the community and focus on what we can do to meet the community's needs. The chair of the Hays County Democratic Party is the local leader of the Democratic Party. And as such, the local leader is in charge of making sure to get out the vote, to organize. It's the chief administrator of the primary election, including identifying polling locations and ensuring that we have election workers, developing budgets, and administrating the election. The county chair is the chief administrator of the county party, which includes finance, management, and building relationships across the county. This includes communicating with voters, managing office space and volunteers, and developing relationships with elected officials, voters, and the public. The chair plans and hosts the county convention for the Democratic primary voters. So we did all this in February of 2021. I was elected, and over the last year, that's what we've been working on. Over the next 2 years, I plan to accomplish 2 very important goals for Hays County. First is to win the election for Democrats in 2022 up and down the ballot. Not just our federal candidates and our state candidates. Historically, we have been able to win those elections, but also the local elections too, the county elections, those local elections that really matter in terms of our residents and our day-to-day services that we need as a community. In order to do that, we have to get every voter to the polls. We have to excite the electorate. We have to wake up, because the 2022 election is so important. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Jeff.
You can finish that sentence if you like.
That's okay. That's great. Go ahead and give me a question. I'll take
All
it.
right, so this is from Noah Johnson. What's the most important thing we can do at the party level to drive the Democratic vote?
The most important thing that we can do to drive Democratic voters is communicate, communicate, communicate. We need to be talking to our neighbors. We need to be talking in our communities. We need to be getting on social media, talking about the importance of the election. We have to communicate over and over and over again to remind people how important this is. We're not out of the woods. We still have a major, major movement that's going on in our country to undermine our democracy and institute autocracy. And if we don't take this moment, to establish democracy and give every voter access and to incorporate energizing communication in our communities, then people will fall asleep and we'll lose. I need every voter to go to the polls, and I need all of us to engage in 2022 election to make that happen. We can win it. We can do it. We can do it together.
Thank you. And a question, you have 30 seconds to respond from Judith Zaffarini. Do you agree with the organizational strategy that comprises a framework to organize Democrats in all 4 commissioners' precincts to get out the vote in November? If so, how would you accomplish that?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, in our new established structure, we have set up the opportunity for a precinct chair lead who is a leader within each of those county commissioner precincts. We've actually established those precinct chair leaders in a geographical location in terms of population centers. However, those population centers overlap with our county commissioner precincts in many ways. And so really within the concept of those population centers, we've established a leader that is going to be focused on getting the vote out in the precincts by empowering precinct chairs with training and organization and support around using our VAN database. It's a great question. Thank you for that question, Senator Zaffarini.
Okay, thank you. She had a follow-up question, but we are out of time. So thank you, Senator Z, for your question, and also Mark Trahan for your answers. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Next up, we have current State Representative Erin Zwiener, and she is running for Texas House District 45. And if you didn't hear the alarm bell ring there, you have 4 minutes, and you'll hear the alarm in 4 minutes when your time is up. Then there'll be 90 seconds, Representative, for Q&A. So it's your turn.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Gary. Y'all, I'm joining you from my car because I popped in to join y'all while taking a break from block walking. Because that is so much of what is important from our local Democratic electeds, that we keep getting out, talking to people, and growing the Democratic base here in Hays County. And I'm happy to tell y'all I was able to register a voter out on the doors today, as well as get other folks in some of these new neighborhoods in Hays County engaged in the political process. So I flipped this seat from red to blue in 2018. I defended it in a really tough year in 2020, and I hope to defend this seat again in 2022. And I know there's been a lot of conversation about how competitive is this seat now. And I want to let everyone know that it is way too soon for Hays County Democrats to take my seat for granted, especially with what we saw on the ground in Virginia. We need to fight for every single seat. And so we are building a full campaign through November to turn out folks, get them to the polls, both to defend my seat, but also to help every single countywide candidate. We have a huge opportunity to flip multiple seats this county, as well as defend our countywide electeds as well. So my team is going to be a core part of doing that moving forward through the general election. But back to work in the legislature itself. I quickly established myself as somebody who is good at the rules and have been able to use those rules in the service of good. For example, I was able to stop 2 bills in their tracks that would have undermined the ability of our cities and our counties to fight climate change. And I was able to do that using what's called a point of order. I was also able to use a point of order to hijack a bill that was designed to make it more affordable for industrial facilities to build transmission lines to them. I was able to hijack that bill and make sure that it also made it more affordable for new renewable generation facilities to be built and get the transmission lines for them to get more power back onto the grid. Many of y'all know environment is one of my big issues. I founded the Texas House Caucus on climate, environment, and the energy industry, the first environmental caucus of its kind. I am still chairing that caucus, and we were able to defend renewables from a lot of unwarranted attacks after the blackout this past session, or this past February. We're almost coming up on the year anniversary of that. I also have been front and center fighting against all of the bad bills y'all hear about in the news, whether that is the 6-week abortion ban or permitless carry. Those are bills that I stood hard and fought against. I am never afraid to fight for what is right on the floor. But I've also managed to balance building relationships and being able to get things done in the Texas Capitol. And that's a tricky balance, but it's one that it's critical to have a representative who can find. I was able to work with Senator Zaffirini to pass legislation to provide sexual harassment protections for another 300,000 Texas workers who previously had none. I was also able to secure an extra $100 million for student financial aid through my position on the House Appropriations Committee. That's something that will help young Texans be able to afford to go get a higher education and give themselves a better shot at finding a great career. I was also able to work with Senator Zaffirini to get funding for a new STEM building at Texas State University and to create a new district court for Hays County that will reduce our backlog of cases in Hays County, which is a huge issue, both with civil cases and with criminal cases. I also want to thank Judge Becerra and Commissioner Inglesby for their help with getting that court through the process. In addition to legislation, it's critical that elected officials provide good information to the community. And so one of the things I was able to do is provide good COVID information and get tens of thousands of COVID-19 tests, vaccines for people in Hays County, as well as help connect them to those vaccination opportunities.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your responses. And we have some questions from the audience. Let me just read the first one. You may not be able to see it there. From Joshua Sanchez. Does Representative Zwiener, shout out to you, thanks, believe Republicans or the governor will ban Delta 8, Delta 9, and other cannabinoids legalized under the 2018 Congressional Farmhouse Bill?
Yeah, that's an ongoing fight. And actually right now, administratively, the Texas Department of State Health Services has been going after Delta 9. And it's a really frustrating development. The fight over Delta 9 actually prevented a really great piece of legislation by my colleague, Representative Joe Moody, that would have made the possession of cannabis concentrate, i.e., oil, butter, basically anything that is considered an edible will have concentrate in it and is currently a felony. So he had a bill to make that only a misdemeanor like leaf cannabis. And unfortunately, it got caught up in the Delta 8 and Delta 9 fight, and the bill didn't make it over the finish line. So I think we're going to continue to see attacks on those, but I do think we continue to see momentum, at least in the Texas House, to be less punitive around cannabis. I don't think we have the votes yet for legalization, but I was able to pass a bill through with a supermajority to effectively decriminalize leaf cannabis. So I think we'll see things move in that direction. Our bigger challenge space is on the Senate side, and making sure that we're bringing the governor along as well. So I think we have space to protect those, but it's going to be a fight.
Okay, thank you. And I don't see another question. And your time is just about up in any case. You have about 9 seconds left if you had a follow-up thought.
Yeah, I'll just say we'll keep fighting to do what's right. And I will keep working to turn out every single Democrat, not only in Hays County, but we're expanding our work to try and help neighboring counties as well, because the point when Texas gets a lot better is when we have a new governor. And that's where I'd like us to get.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate you coming here and speaking with us today. Thank you. Next up is Beth Payán, who is running for the Texas Third Court of Appeals, place 4. Ms. Payán, if you would like to proceed, you have 4 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. My name is Beth Payán, and I'm running to flip the last Republican-held seat on the Third Court of Appeals. The Third Court of Appeals hears the cases from Travis, Williamson, and Hays, 24 total counties, civil and criminal cases. It reviews those decisions. It also reviews the decisions by the governor, lieutenant governor, and many of our state agencies. So if you care about things like what's happening in our public schools, what's happening in the criminal justice system, or maybe in our libraries, then you care about the Third Court of Appeals. Growing up in Dallas, my dad dropped out of school and worked at a small business. My mother was a librarian in Holocaust and Jewish studies. And they raised me with the Jewish tradition of tikkun olam, which means to repair the world. It is essentially the intersection of social action and social justice. And it is those values which have informed my commitment and approach to everything I've done in my life and have really brought me here to talk to you today. I've dedicated my entire career to public service and to improving the criminal justice system. I have been a trial lawyer for nearly 30 years with both civil and criminal experience. I went from legal aid to the city to the county, the Travis County District Attorney's Office, because you can't reform something if you don't really understand it. So I decided to go in-house. At the District Attorney's Office, I sat on the committee that helped create the Austin Downtown Community Court, working hand in hand with persons affected by homelessness to get them support services they need. I also volunteered numerous years in our drug diversion program, learning about addiction and how it affects individuals, the community, their families. Currently, I'm the lead attorney in our diversion program, where I'm developing and executing policy to help get low-level, nonviolent youthful offenders out of custody, get them the help and support the services they need to live a law-abiding life outside of our system, because we all know the negative impact a conviction can have on everyday people, their jobs, their housing, childcare, everything. I'm also the hate crimes prosecutor for the office, and I've sat on the hate crimes task force since its inception. I've sat on the Travis County Family Violence Protection Team, Child Protection Team, and Child Fatality Review Team. Those are multidisciplinary teams working to stop further abuse or neglect. I think that is relevant because the justices on the Third Court of Appeals sit in panels of 3 to make their decisions, and I have that experience of working collaboratively. I've litigated thousands of cases and tried hundreds on everything from family law, child welfare law, and criminal law, from a capital murder all the way down to sexual assault of children, tax fraud, and official oppression, all precisely the types of cases that are heard by the Third Court of Appeals. We need justices on the Third Court of Appeals with compassion, knowledge of the law, and a depth of experience trying the types of cases that come before them. Speaking directly to my qualifications and integrity is the fact that I have numerous criminal defense attorneys and civil trial attorneys who are supporting me in my campaign, many of which I've gone up against for years in our system here in Travis County. In 2021, I was honored by the Travis County Women Lawyers Association and the Austin Bar Association. I've shown my commitment to democratic values through my service as a VDR, a former precinct chair, former president of the Capital Area Democratic Women, and on the board of the North by Northwest Democrats. So I have nearly 30 years of experience, deep roots in my community with volunteer service and service on a number of boards, and also active service in the Democratic Party. I've been hard at work across all 24 counties. I know the hard work it takes to flip a seat from my work as a precinct chair. I know that.
You can finish your sentence.
I know that grassroots organizing is very important, and that's how we get out and we do the hard work that I participated in to try to flip seats. And that's what I'm trying to do. This is the last Republican seat.
Thank you, ma'am, for your opening statement. There is a question from Laurel Harris, and she asks, eliminating the death penalty is part of the Dem platform. Please discuss this issue and what is your experience?
So I think the first thing I would say to you is, while I've tried everything from a capital murder case on down, the Court of Appeals does not hear capital murder cases for death penalty. If somebody is issued a death penalty, the case goes directly to the highest criminal court, the Court of Criminal Appeals. And so those are not heard at the Third Court. Additionally, what I would say to you, unfortunately, I think if you look at my service and my work with not unfortunately, I'll get to that in a minute, my service and my work with the Democratic Party and my background, which you can read on my website, bethpayán.com. You can read all about that there. But as a judicial candidate, judicial canons, the Texas Code of Judicial Conduct, prohibits me from talking specifically and expressing an opinion about a specific case or specific issues in cases. So I can't really address that, but I can say that we would not be hearing them at the Third Court of Appeals.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions at this point. You have about 20 seconds if you care to wrap up with one thought.
Sure. I would love to have your support. I have been endorsed by the many Democratic organizations here in Travis County, including the Central Labor Council, my local union, AFSCME 1624, the South Austin Democrats, the Northeast Travis County Democrats, the Black Austin Democrats, the Stonewall Democrats, the Liberal Austin Democrats, and the Capital Area Progressive Democrats. I live in Austin with my husband, Ariel Payán, who is a criminal defense attorney and has worked for over 20 years trying cases for the indigent, my 2 children, and our dog, Abby.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for coming today. All right, next up is Ed Ireson, who is running for Texas Agriculture Commissioner. You'll have 4 minutes, sir, for your opening statement, and then 90 seconds for a Q&A. So it's all yours. Oh, you're muted, sir.
Yep, that would be the mute button.
Okay, now you're on.
There we go.
We can hear
Howdy,
you.
y'all. My name is Ed Ireson, and I'm running for Commissioner of Agriculture. I'm a businessman, a new father, and a proud Texan. My family's been raising cattle over in Brazos County for 130 years, and I'm running for the next generation of Texans. Let's talk a little bit about what the Department of Agriculture oversees. It's 3 things: school meal programs, rural infrastructure development, including internet and healthcare, and then, of course, promoting all the great things that we produce here in Texas. I think each of these things are deeply important to ensure that we're setting up the next generation for success. The first one's obvious. We need to have our kids to have a healthy, well-rounded meal so that they can be ready to learn and focused. I had somebody send me their school lunch menu the other day, and it was a honey bun for breakfast. That's not a nutritional meal, and it's gonna be hard to focus on your education if that's the only thing you're getting for breakfast. Then when the kids come home from school, I think it's critical that we have equitable internet access, no matter where you live across the state. Our rural communities are being left behind. Kids need to be able to come home and do their homework, do research, take a test, apply for college. And of course, these past 2 years have made that even more evident. Now, finally, this one might not seem the most obvious, but I think it's important to promote Texas agriculture as it relates to the next generation, because I want our kids to know what opportunity lies within the ag industry. It's a massive part of the Texas economy. Our kids should know that they can get a good job in ag, and they don't have to move to Dallas or Houston to make a living. Let's talk about November. I think that voters in Texas are going to be looking for something different. I won't comment about the current Republican incumbent. You can Google him, and there's plenty of news articles you can read about him. But I think that Texans in November are going to want somebody who's going to come in and work with all Texans and do so with integrity, honesty, and transparency. So that's a brief bit about who I am and what the Commissioner of Agriculture does. So I'm happy to take any questions y'all might have.
Okay, thank you. You still have a little time left, but I will go ahead, and I don't see any questions from the audience just yet, so I'll go ahead and ask one. So as the Texas Agriculture Commissioner, how do you think you can make Texas life better for all Texans?
That's a broad question.
It's a wide office, so I'm going big on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so let's talk about the budget of the Department of Agriculture. Something like 80% of it, at least the majority of it, is school lunches, and it's federal dollars. It comes down from the USDA and funds the school meal programs, breakfast and lunch, and that's something that affects everyone across the state. The other part of it I'd like to mention is just kind of how linked our cities and our rural communities are, and how much we don't really see that, right? Without our rural communities, we don't have the food that's grown. The food that's grown, the crops, the cattle, all that stuff feeds us, those of us who live in the city. And so I think it's important that we're getting out there and championing, all the great things that ag does.
Okay, and I see a couple more specific questions now. One from Heiko Stang. How can the Commissioner of Agriculture help with the mitigation of the effects of climate change?
Absolutely. There's a lot of land in Texas and a lot of land being used for agriculture uses. We got to become more efficient with that. We need to start thinking about carbon recapture and doing interesting things like rotational grazing, rotational cropping, to make sure that we're making the best use of the agricultural lands we have, and doing so in a way that is carbon friendly. There's got to be a balance between, we've got to be able to feed the people, and we have to do it in a way that is efficient for the environment.
Okay, thank you. And we have a couple of other questions. The first one was, how would you differ from your opponent? And the second one is, how or would you support organic farming initiatives? And you have 90 seconds left.
Okay, so let's start with organic farming initiatives. The Department of Agriculture has a bunch of grants, economic incentives, and other kind of financial mechanisms that they could be using to really promote organic farming, but those things are not being done right now. We need to be supporting our farmers markets. We need to be supporting all of kind of our small and local agriculture producers, many of which are doing organic farming, and we need to make sure that those programs are not hidden away, 14 clicks underneath the website, or you have to call and try to get some information about it. The Department of Agriculture needs to be going out and talking to farmers and ranchers about this stuff and supporting them specifically around organic farming. And I'm sorry, what was the other question?
The other question was, how do you differ from your opponents?
Got it. Look, you're welcome to go look up Susan. She's done a lot of things as it relates to hemp and cannabis. She's a longtime lobbyist in Travis County, and she's done a lot of great things for Texas. I think that in November, what we've got to do as Democrats is really get everyone out there, and that includes some of the independents who may not be too concerned about cannabis. I'm for it, but I think that we, as it relates to the Department of Agriculture, unfortunately, it's just a small percentage of the department. A lot of it comes down to other things. And I think that's the timer.
That is the timer. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your time today, and thank
Absolutely.
you for joining us at our forum.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And next up, we have Jay Kleberg, who is running for Texas Land Commissioner. And Mr. Kleberg, you will have 4 minutes to give your statement, and then 90 seconds for Q&A. So the floor is yours, sir.
Great. Thanks for hosting this on a Sunday afternoon. The General Land Office is the state's oldest state agency and manages about 13 million acres of public lands to benefit K through 12 education in the state of Texas through the Permanent School Fund, and also veterans through the Veterans Land program. It also oversees the Alamo and about $14 billion in natural disaster relief that comes out of the federal government through FEMA and HUD. I've spent the last 20 years of my life in land conservation, land management, natural resource conservation internationally at the federal level, and here in Texas as Associate Director of Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation. I'm an entrepreneur. I started a land sharing business that now has over 1 million acres under its portfolio, not just in Texas, but outside in New Mexico, Montana, Colorado, and California. And the idea behind that was to make sure that not only do we provide additional income streams to keep wildlife habitat and land habitat together to benefit all of our land, water, and air resources, but also to provide public access in a state that's 95% privately owned. I produced a movie called The River and the Wall, stood up against the wall and its negative impacts along the Texas-Mexico border, access to the Rio Grande, wildlife habitat, and negative impacts to the binational communities there. And what I've learned in all of that work is that everything that we love in the state of Texas is at risk. And it's at risk due to climate change. And I've spent my career taking climate action. And those who have held this office have ignored the warning signs. We're number one in CO2 emissions in the nation. We lead the nation in billion-dollar natural disasters. We're 45th in education, and we're going to see a doubling of 100-degree days in the next 10 years. But rather than taking action, those over the last 20 years who've held this position have used it as a stepping stone. I have no interest in that. If you look at my life's work, it is in natural resource conservation and management, and that those who have held this office have failed all Texans. One, our Texas veterans homes, of which the General Land Office manages 9 in the state of Texas, had double the death rate of any of the nursing homes in the state of Texas. We saw a failure of the grid. That's a lack of diversity amongst the portfolio that the General Land Office holds, and that we've failed to push forward and lean into technology and opportunities in carbon capture, carbon sequestration, re-engaging in programs like the Texas Farm and Ranch Lands Conservation Program. And so I'll just leave you with this. One of the failures of the General Land Office will impact Kyle and Buda if it proceeds. They have tried twice to delist the golden cheek warbler. So much habitat in the hill country has been protected by that endangered species and those protections because of its habitat. And the General Land Office has chosen profits over the kind of environment and the kind of future that we would leave to our children. And so it's something that I would stand up against. And I appreciate y'all having us here and for the time.
Okay, thank you, sir. We have a question from Heiko Stang. He says, regarding the Alamo and Texas history and truth, how would you handle the recurring controversies?
That's a great question. So the Alamo Citizens Advisory Council has been put together with a number of representatives from the community. One of our supporters is Judge Nelson Wolf and Justin Rodriguez, who've been heavily involved in that process. And one thing that I would say and how I would deal with that is Texas is so diverse today and in our history before 1836 that we've had indigenous tribes, we have had Tejanos, we've had so many people, African-American and others who have contributed to this history, not just prior to, but and during, but then after. If you look at some of the structures that the General Land Office manages, which are across the street from the Alamo in the Woolworth building and others, that they were part of desegregation of their stores in 1960 during that movement. And so I would treat it holistically, that we should celebrate the diversity in our history that should reflect the diversity that we have in the state today.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions. You still have about 30 seconds to go if you'd like to make a closing statement.
Yeah, I would just say that we're working hard to reach all parts of the state. We've made one round around the state of Texas and hit all regions and talked to a lot of people. We've received endorsements from Speaker Pro Tem Joe Moody, from Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, from Cecile Richards and Wendy Davis, the delegation at the House in the Rio Grande Valley, from both congressmen there, Ron Kirk in Dallas, the Tejano Democrats, the LGBT caucus in Harris County. And so we're not leaving anybody out. We want to give people a reason to come out and vote and address the issues. And we feel like having raised just over $500,000 that we can win this in the general. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate you coming and joining us today for our forum at KBAD. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Janet T. Dudding, who is running for Texas Comptroller.
Hi there.
Let's see. I think you're not quite on screen yet. There you go. There you are.
Hi there. I'm right outside Henderson County, Texas, on the way back to Bryan College Station. I think I've got a PA system in the back of my car, which doesn't everybody travel with a PA system. I am Janet Dudding. I am running for Comptroller of Public Accounts, which is the state's accountant. And if there is any elected office that's built for someone like me, this is it. As a single mom, I averaged 20 hours a semester to earn my accounting degree, finished school, started working full-time for the state auditor's office, threw myself into my MBA program and became a CPA, but I'm a different kind of CPA. I'm not who you come to see in April to do your income taxes. I'm who you come to see if your taxes are well spent. That first job out of school was actually investigating allegations that elected officials had embezzled money or taken kickbacks. I helped lay the groundwork for Operation Pretense, which put 50 plus corrupt politicians in prison. I did that with then Mississippi State Auditor Ray Mabus, who y'all may know went on to become governor before he was appointed Secretary of the Navy by President Obama. I've spent my life in governmental accounting, audit, administration, and even investigations. I've been a city comptroller, a county comptroller. Now I'm running to be state comptroller. The comptroller's office has some interesting nuances which intrigue me too. The comptroller is responsible for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, which is methane is one of them. I'm a Katrina survivor. We moved over from the Mississippi Gulf Coast after their 32-foot storm surge wiped us off the map so that my husband could join Texas A&M civil engineering faculty. Climate change is personal to me. Climate change caused disasters are costing billions of dollars and costing even more in human costs from living through those disasters and recovering from those disasters. Another thing that the comptroller's office is charged with is green jobs and green energies, and that intrigues me too. I am delighted that the infrastructure bill has passed because there's money for green energy and green jobs. Green jobs pay a living wage right out of high school. Interested in working with labor to see what we can do. The last thing that I'd like to mention, which is a little nuance that is one of my passions, is expanding broadband across the state. I'm very interested in talking with local leaders. Might need some help from our legislature to make sure that this is allowed in law, but I'm interested in talking with our local leaders about providing broadband in rural areas as a utility. They provide electric, water, sewer. Internet is a utility also. By doing it that way, they could cut costs, provide services, make services more accessible, and also create an income stream, which is desperately needed in the rural areas. Those are the things that I'm interested in. I'm interested in being your state comptroller, and I would welcome any questions.
Okay, I don't see any questions, so I'll have I'm looking here now. I'll check one. Oh, there is one here now from Senator Zaffarini, and she asks, when Texas A&M Chancellor John Sharp was our comptroller, he worked closely with legislators regarding welfare reform, Medicaid reform, and other priority issues to pass the best legislation possible. Would you take that leadership role too?
Senator, I'm so glad you asked that question. Another one of the reasons that I'm running for anything is after the Medicaid effort last legislative session, and thank everybody for all of your efforts on Medicaid. We got enough signatures by sponsoring names on the legislation to pass it. I almost came to Austin to watch it on the floor for the budget vote. The fact that we're spending $100 million more to deny comprehensive mental and physical health care coverage to $1.4 million just floors me, and was one of the reasons that moved me to run. Yes, I would love to work with closely with legislators, to try to pass the best bills possible, and use that bully pulpit, which is the comptroller's office. The comptroller has all the reporting, all the debits, all the credits, all the money coming in, all the money coming out, all of the analytical tools to take a good look and report and hopefully translate the programs that are on the books right now and ways to tweak those programs to make them more efficient and to stretch that dollar. 40% of our budget right now is federal. So it's not like we eschew all federal monies. Let's stretch the money. Let's leverage our money. I've worked on the Mississippi Gulf Coast after Hurricane Katrina. I actually went back to Waveland, Mississippi, because they were about to lose their charter. They were becoming insolvent. There's no bankruptcy provision in Mississippi state law. Worked with MEMA, FEMA, CDBG to break that log jam, leverage that money, break that log jam, and make payment more efficient.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dudding. Thank you for joining us today at our KBAD forum. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for letting me buzz in. Thanks. Bye, y'all.
Thank you. Bye. Next, we have Michael Lange, who is another candidate running for Texas Land Commissioner. And you will have 4 minutes, sir, for your opening statement, and then 90 seconds for a question and answer period. So it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Well, Jeff and Kyle Buda Democrats, first of all, thank you very much for doing this. It's greatly appreciated on a Sunday afternoon. My name is Michael Lange, and I'm running for Land Commissioner, and I'm asking for your vote. I was born and raised in Texas, born in Houston, but also raised in rural Texas. So I understand both worlds very well. I'm the son of working class immigrants. My father was the first person in his family to ever graduate high school. I've been a Democrat since the age of 16. I worked on 12 campaigns, but I've been a Democrat for over 40 years. I love Texas. I love road tripping Texas. And there's no part of Texas that I've never been to yet, many times. So I understand Texas. It's multicultural, it's diverse, and it's changing rapidly. The primary is about who has the best chance of beating the hardcore right-wing Republican in November. I have 40 years of leadership experience in large, complex organizations and small businesses in Texas, US, and the world. So I bring a very different skill set. But my people say to me, Michael, if you're a land commissioner, what would you actually get done with all those skills? What would you actually do? Well, here's some thoughts for you. Number one, the kids. The Land Commission looks after 13 million acres. Think 13 million football fields. That generates $1 billion of income a year. Did you know that Texas ranks 45th in the nation in reading skills for K through 12? So the bottom 5. Well, that $1 billion that goes to the permanent school fund has a little bit of leverage. And what if the Land Commission had the vision to do this? Take reading skills and help working with others to take it from the bottom 5 into the top 5. And by doing that, you create more jobs employers want to hire in Texas. You create higher paying jobs. You drive the economy forward. You give Texans better lives, and you give families in Texas safer lives. That's a vision for Texas. Another thing is veterans. The Land Commission looks after 1.4 million Texas veterans. I don't know anyone who's told me that the land office does that very well. As a matter of fact, I think it do badly. I have a plan called Texas Has Your Six, or Texas Has Your Back. It's going to totally overhaul Veterans Administration, the Veterans Land Board, and the General Land Office. It's going to make products competitive, easy to understand, more effective, and more importantly, actually be helpful to veterans, which is not right now. Another big issue is the 1,200 miles of coastline the Land Commission looks after. And if you think about standing on a beach and look at 10 miles out into the Gulf, that's what you're responsible for. But one of the issues is like hurricanes, which we're going to see a lot more of. When the hurricanes occurred and left and the TV cameras have lost, the planning for the people left who've been hurt, who need recovery, that goes on months and years, has not really been looked at properly. For example, one little fact. Did you know that after a hurricane, domestic violence against women and children increases by 40%? What if you had a land commission that knew that and create partnerships to deal with that on a planned basis? Environmental safety. How can we change the air and water, make it cleaner now? Well, we know already, because I've been to the oil fields, there's good actors, bad actors, and mediocre actors. What if we just ensured that all the players adhere to all the federal and state regulations right now, which they're not? It would immediately make the air cleaner and safer. The Alamo, $450 million renovation project. Let the Alamo tell the whole story. Let the Alamo complex, which is a partnership of many people, let's tell the whole story of the Alamo. It was built by the Spanish in the 1700s, but let's tell the whole story of the Alamo, not just the Shrine of Liberty. So I'm Michael Lange. I'm running for Texas Land Commission, asking for your vote, and I'd love to take some questions from you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let's see if we have any questions in the from the audience. And it looks like we do have one from Christina Depperschmidt. Can you speak to the dark sky and pollinator pathway movements?
I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to come back to you on that. I have to research that. I don't have enough knowledge to give you a specific answer to that. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I'll ask one then, unless there's another one. I don't see another one coming up. What role does the land commissioner have in building the governor's wall on the border in South Texas? And what would your role be?
I believe the land commissioner's job is helping the people of Texas have better and safer lives. It's not about doing something that you're not supposed to do. Why do you politicize something that's supposed to be about helping people? The current land commissioner is denied huge amounts of money for hurricane federal funds to people who need it in Texas. There's over $2 billion in federal funds because he hasn't done his job. There's not in the hands of people in Texas that should be there. Why lease out land would be used for agriculture and produce money for the permanent school fund to build a wall? I don't see the purpose of that. It's to help the kids. It's to give people better lives. It's to help bring people help and make themselves better. It's not about helping build walls. It's about making people's lives better. And that should be the focus. Helping the kids, helping the teachers, the parents, and the veterans. That's what the Texas Land Commission should be doing, not focusing on walls.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. That does it for your session. You have a few seconds left if you have a closing comment.
I do. Thank you. This is about who has the best chance of winning against the Republican in November. That's what your vote's for. I'm Michael Lange, running for land commissioner. I have the skill set and experience, so let's go win in November. I'll get the job done. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us here at the KBAD Forum. Next up, we'll be having Sandragrace Martinez, who is also running for land commissioner.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me here. Can you hear me fine?
Can I just tell you, you'll have 4 minutes. I don't know if you heard this already.
I have, sir.
I have to give everyone 4 minutes for your opening comments and then a minute and a half for Q&A.
Yes,
so
sir.
All yours.
I appreciate you having me on your show, and happy Sunday to you guys. Hello, my name is Sandragrace Martinez, one word, Sandragrace, one word. Martinez, I'm a native Texan, born and raised in San Antonio. I'm a mother of 2 sons. My oldest is a Marine in the Armed Forces. And my youngest son is a gifted teen artist diagnosed with Asperger's, or he's on the autism spectrum. I'm the daughter of immigrants and a first-generation American citizen. I'm a proud graduate of the University of Texas at San Antonio, earning a BA in political science with emphasis on constitutional law. I am one of 12 students to have received the first coveted Gregory Luna Fellow Scholarship Award, which is still a huge source of pride for me. In 2007, I earned a master's in marriage and family therapy, of all things, from St. Mary's University in San Antonio. I worked several years in the trenches of state agencies aimed at making our communities safer, especially for children. I've been a Texas Senate legislative aide, a Texas Department of Criminal Justice parole officer, and an investigator with the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, where I learned the complexities of law and their effects on the public. I am well versed in how appropriations and legislative bills can significantly impact the lives of individuals, and how the smallest tweaks in statutes can have a major and significant impact on our community. Since 2001, I have been involved in every legislative session, including special sessions, as there is importance in staying informed to the change applied in every legislative year. I attained my state licensure status in 2012 as a licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas Behavioral Health Executive Council. My current board is, I am in good standing with my board, and I am a practicing mental health clinician. So today I'm serving as chair of Bexar County Child Welfare Board Children's Committee and the co-chair of the Legislative Affairs due to my experience on the legislative session. I also have the honor of serving on the Bexar County Sheriff's Office Training Academy Advisory Board created by Sheriff Javier Salazar. My qualifications as a clinical psychologist gives me an added insight into the emotional components involved of the needs of our veterans, those who work in our public educational system, and will add a necessary layer of how we can approach our natural disasters and recovery relief, especially the logistics. Why my expertise is in trauma-informed care, in crisis management, and my in-depth understanding of the legislative process and the desire for educating my community is a passion that has equipped me with the necessary skills to perform the duties required to confidently run for the office of Texas Land Commissioner.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Let's see if there are any questions from the audience. And not seeing any, I'll go ahead and ask one that was asked to a previous candidate. How would you handle the controversies surrounding the Alamo and some of the efforts that are going on about revamping that piece of property?
Well, it's a shame that it had to become a controversy. The Alamo, I mean, as a kid, going to the Alamo we didn't have all these narratives. My personal connection to the Alamo is knowing the leadership personally here in San Antonio. So having those connections and bringing everyone to the table, which our mayor, who is brilliant in my humble opinion, has made it so that we have the synergy required to make this Alamo controversy become something that we'll later look back and say, well, we were being really silly and we did the right thing. He's bringing people to a think tank or a committee has been created. And I have every bit of faith that those members are going to make the right decision. And as your next Texas Land Commissioner, I stand beside whatever comes of that particular think tank. But I do not want to minimize how important it is to make sure that we have the necessary diversity in the approach to educating all those in the next generations of what truly happened at the Alamo. And the funny story is, I'm a therapist, so I pulled a what's called a psychosocial. I did my own, who the heroes, I say it in quotes, guess that some of these were deadbeat dads. And so that's their psychosocial, that's for a whole other show. But I appreciate asking that question. I just have a different perspective on it.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Martinez.
you. It was a pleasure.
We appreciate your coming to the forum today. Next up is Ginny Sue, who is also running for Texas Land Commissioner. And you'll have 4 minutes to give your statement and 90 seconds then for Q&A.
Hello, KBAD. How are you all today? I hope you're doing well. My name is Ginny Sue, and I'm running for Texas Land Commissioner. I am coming to you today as a fighter, a community organizer, and an activist. Those of you who know me in real life, you know that I'm quite small in size, but you also know that I'm very powerful. I am a licensed attorney, a former teacher, a former PTA leader, a small business owner, and a working mom to 2 children aged 5 and 9. I'm also the founder and leader of Immunize Texas, which is how many of you know me. I've been at the state capitol for the past 6 years, fighting for better public health care policy, especially in the realm of vaccines. And if you know what it's like to go up against anti-vaxxers, you know that I am not afraid of a fight, and I don't give up when things are hard. I don't think that I've shared this with you all, but I want to talk a little bit about how I was raised. I'm the child of working class Korean immigrants, and I, through that experience, know what it's like to grow up without health insurance. I was also treated as an other by my community. I actually grew up in a small rural town. You may not be able to tell by the way I am today, but about 10,000 people in my town. And I also had the experience of watching my parents lose their plant nursery business when droughts ravaged our small town. And the reason I bring that up is it's why I believe and know I shouldn't say believe, I should say I know that climate change is real. Now, when we're talking about the Texas Land Commissioner seat, all good Democrats know that climate change is the big problem that we are facing. So I really want to talk about also the need to have a leader in place that has the vision and the backbone to take action and put policies into place that get us in front of climate change as a state. I'm all about leadership, experience, and integrity. So when we're talking about what we need from our next land commissioner, you can see from the endorsements that I've received from people like Julie Oliver, from Donna Howard, Erin Zwiener. You can also see the organizational endorsements I've received from groups like AFL-CIO, Pflugerville Area Democrats, Collin County Young Democrats. I have the support of a very diverse set of groups and people because they all see in me someone that has leadership skills, experience, and integrity. Now, my work has been all about bringing people together from all different sides to come up with solutions for our public health problems. Well, we need to do the same thing when it comes to climate change and the other issues that the land office touches. We need someone that can bring science together with business interests and get to work finding solutions to make sure that we're prepared for the next winter storm, for the next hurricane, for the next drought, for the next wildfire, you name it, that's what we need to do. So it's for all these reasons that I'm running for this office. We need to treat facts as facts and not as evidence. And we need to make sure we have someone in place that has the ability to manage an 800+ person agency. So I hope I've earned your support. I would love to take any questions. And again, my name is Ginny Sue, running for Texas Land Commissioner.
Thank you, ma'am. There is a question from Noah Johnson who asks, how can you help veterans when you're elected?
So as you've learned from the other candidates, they've explained it very well. We do offer a lot of programs through the General Land Office to benefit veterans. But what I've learned across the state is that veterans are not aware of those programs, and so they cannot access them and take advantage of them. In fact, I'm actually here in Athens, Texas, where I just spoke with some veterans who told me the same thing. They would love to be able to get a home loan through the Veterans Program, but they didn't know it existed. So what I would like to do is engage in a real program focused on outreach, making sure that veterans learn about the benefits that are available through the General Land Office, making sure that the processes to apply are easy, accessible, so that they can take advantage of those benefits. I don't understand the point of having a program on paper if no one knows about it or can access it. So that is number one priority for me, putting people first, making sure they can take advantage of what's being offered by the General Land Office.
Okay, we have a little time left for one last question from Melissa Garza. Ginny, what sets you apart from your opponents?
So again, I think my approach is what sets me apart. I'm not somebody that just wants to go with what sounds really, interesting or, unique in terms of approaches on how we get in front of the problems that we face. I'm all about making sure there's facts and evidence to back up whatever plan we take. So there's a lot of interesting technology out there, but they haven't really been vetted. They haven't been evaluated for whether they can scale up and be used for the whole state of Texas. I'm also diverse. I'm an Asian American woman, the only one running statewide, and we need women to be elected in Texas. That is how we will win in November, because women will motivate more people to go out to the polls and vote. And in this race, our most likely Republican nominee will be a woman. So it's important that we have a strong, progressive, Democratic woman like myself running against them. So I think those are the reasons why I'm the best candidate, not just in the primary, but also for the general election.
Okay, thank you. I think there are no more questions. You have about 20 seconds to wrap up.
Absolutely. Well, you all know my reputation. You know the work that I've done. I hope you can see that I am passionate about this race. I am out there doing everything I can to get voters to come out to the polls that will benefit the entire party. And I am dedicated to being a great Democrat, working together with everyone up and down the ballot so that as a party we can win, not just in November, but in future cycles. So I hope I've earned your support. Ginny Sue, Texas Land Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate your coming today very much.
Thank you.
Thank you and good luck. Next, we have Joe Jaworski, who is running for Texas Attorney General. You'll have 4 minutes, sir, to lay out your case, and then 90 seconds for a Q&A. So take it away, sir.
That's fabulous. Kyle, Buda-Area Democrats, good afternoon. I just got back from El Paso. where I am proud to tell you I earned the Tejano Democrats endorsement and also met with young El Paso Democrats. And that is what you need as a candidate, to be able to go from east to west, north to south, and out hustle the Texas GOP, who are hell-bent on destroying our democracy. Now, Kyle Buda-Area Democrats, I remember as nearly a 60-year-old Texan, my birthday is March 1st, on the date of the primary. I remember when Texas government meant good government, reliable state services, productive partnerships with local authorities. I'm a native Texan who remembers Texas leaders who served with distinction, those that made us proud. Ann Richards, our governor, Congresswoman Barbara Jordan, Lieutenant Governor Bill Hobby, Attorney General John Hill. These were giants of public service. Their work, their example made us proud to be Texans. I remember. But today, Texas is led by corrupt officials who can't see past their primary races. Job security and self-enrichment are their daily purpose, not public service. It's embarrassing to endure their daily selfish contempt for the voters. I mean, really, they're truly embarrassing Texas on the world's stage. How far we've fallen from that time not so long ago when our government enforced safety in the workplace, stood up to powerful corporations, and served working Texans. So here's my summary view of it, where we are right now, and it's best to be unequivocal. You can't trust the Texas GOP to lead our state any longer. And Texans deserve a Democrat in high office to balance the equation and serve the people again. I'm running for Texas Attorney General because I can win the race against Ken Paxton, the GOP's likely nominee. I'm a third-generation Texas trial lawyer whose family legacy is no man is above the law. Now, Leon Jaworski, my grandfather, said those words in the United States Supreme Court about Richard Nixon, but, you know, that mantra certainly applies to Ken Paxton, too. I bring 3 decades professional experience to this race, and I've practiced in courts all over Texas, and I have a solid reputation as an attorney and a former mayor of Galveston, Texas, that voters will prefer over corrupt Ken Paxton. Kyle Buda, this is the state's marquee race because we can win it in November and begin a new era of service and Texas leadership that makes people proud. I'm Joe Jaworski. I'm running to serve as your next Texas Attorney General, and I'm respectfully asking on this very good Sunday for your endorsement and your vote.
Thank you, sir. It is a beautiful Sunday, and thank you for joining us during this time we have here together. We do have a question from Noah Johnson, who asks, how will you protect voting rights?
Thank you, Noah. Here's my pledge to you. I will take the ashes of Ken Paxton's fake voter fraud unit and turn it into General Jaworski's voter access unit. This will be staffed with investigators and lawyers, and we will protect people's voting rights. So if you get in line, for example, at 6:45 p.m., but they shut the door, you ought to be able to call the government. If you sign your name as you do on your application to vote by mail, and you sign your name as you do on the ballot, but someone says, well, these signatures don't match, you ought to be able to call the government. Importantly, you ought to be able to rely on your government to enforce Texas Election Code 13.046D as in David, which requires every principal in every school, public, private, charter, religious, to offer registration to the seniors attaining age 18 twice a year. As your Texas Attorney General, I will enforce that law. And I'll be firm and nice about it, sending a letter to every principal. Dear principal, please confirm receipt of this letter and let us know the 2 days this calendar year, this school year, that you will be offering registration. Can you imagine if we register every 18-year-old in this state? And more importantly, can you imagine if we stoke, Noah, that same sense of zealousness, that zeal when it comes to voting at age 18 that the teenagers feel 2 years earlier when it's time to get the driver's license. Transformative.
Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it. You have about 10 seconds to have a closing thought.
I'm running to restore integrity to the consequential office of Texas Attorney General. We can investigate, we can initiate litigation, we can advise. This is the race that will transform Texas, and I respectfully ask for your support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jaworski. We appreciate you coming today.
Certainly.
Next up, we're going to be moving now to the congressional races for Texas. And we have David Anderson, Jr., who is running for Texas Congressional District 21. Mr. Anderson, you have 4 minutes for your opening, and then 90 seconds for Q&A. It's all yours.
All right. I would like to thank y'all so much for inviting me today. My name is David Anderson. I'm running for Texas 21st Congressional District. I'm a longtime Texas resident, born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. Mom was a school teacher. Dad was a mortician. Until a tragic day, I woke up. My mom had a stroke that left her paralyzed until the day she passed away, and my dad was diagnosed with COPD. So from the age of 7 until the age of 24, I was raised by 2 disabled parents. And seeing my parents disabled showed me that we need people in office that actually care about us, and that we don't need people in office that just care about the money. I'm a Texas State Bobcat. I'm a CEO of Divine Equality, which is a 501c3 nonprofit out of San Antonio. I'm the former secretary of Texas Polycythemia Cancer Research, and I'm the former board of advisors for Southern Careers Institute out of the south side of San Antonio. I'm running off of 2 major platforms: education reform and extended Medicaid and Medicare and Medicaid expansion throughout Texas. And the reason I'm doing education reform is because the United States is one of the lowest ranked nations. Is one of the lowest ranked nations when it comes to our education, and that's something that should not be. And that's something that should not happen. We have the resources and the money that we can provide our teachers, our schools, and our students with a better education system, but it's something that we have not looked into yet. After talking to a lot of teachers, most teachers are quitting at a alarming rate because of the pay. Most teachers start off at $45,000 to $50,000 a year, and in like 5 or 6 years down the road, they're still at that same pay rate. That's something that should never happen. If we want our teachers to teach our students and teach our kids, we need to pay them what they're worth. And when it comes to Medicaid and Medicaid expansion, coming from 2 disabled parents, coming from somebody that in 2020, I broke my leg twice, and coming from all 13 of my aunts on my mom's side having MS, I see that if you do not have Medicaid and Medicare, there are some type of health insurance that the system will can leave you broke and in poverty, and that is something that we should never have. And that's something that's never happened. Nobody should be turned away from any hospital or any clinic because they don't have medical insurance. Or when they do see them, they get a bill that's so high that it puts them back in debt. We're running. My campaign is a grassroots campaign. I do have a big diverse staff from all races to all backgrounds, and that's something that I pride myself on. Like I tell everybody, I'm a proud Democrat, but my staff includes everywhere from Democrats to Republicans to Libertarians to Green Party to the Make America Great crowd. Because at the end of the day, in Texas 21. If I win this seat, I just can't be a congressman for Democrats. I gotta be a congressman for everybody, and we gotta put the best legislation that benefits the whole district, and not just a certain amount, and not just a certain group. As we see now, that's what Chip Warrior's doing, and we see how that's affecting us. And so that's why my staff is so diverse, because I want to hear opinions from everybody. So when I do get in office, I will have them voices in my ear that can guide me to making the right decisions. So I would like to open it for questions now. 4.
Okay, let's see, sir, if we have any questions. David, are there any questions from the from the public group? I don't see any, so sir, I'll toss one out there for you. So you mentioned Chip Roy. Can you give us some examples of the kinds of things that he has been doing that you will change for 21?
So the one thing is Chip Roy is for not teaching critical race theories in school. That's something that needs to be taught in school, and that's something that every United States congressman should be pushing for critical race theories to be taught in school. Chip Roy has mentioned in numerous newspapers that lynching should be brought back as a form of punishment. That's something that no congressman should say. That's something that can set this nation back years if they bring back lynching as a form of punishment. Chip Roy has also said he hopes insurance companies make more money. Even though Chip Roy was diagnosed with cancer and Chip Roy has been taking the medicine, he still is advocating for insurance companies to make more money. As somebody that was diagnosed with cancer and as somebody that has seen how high them bills are, he should be going up against insurance companies instead of hoping that they make more money.
One thing Chip Roy has also done is to talk about tyranny, and that fighting COVID is tyranny, and that we should not subject ourselves to that. Can you tell us what your position would be about fighting COVID?
I'm all for mask mandates and I'm all for vaccines because that's something that we need. Because if we would have did the vaccines and the mask mandates earlier, we wouldn't be in this position that we are now. Most Republicans, including Chip Roy, have been fighting against mask mandates, and now we got this Omicron variant that's spreading like wildfire. But if people would have actually was wearing their masks in public, it was actually getting the vaccines, we wouldn't be where we at now, because now we got some businesses, mom and pop businesses closing back down, and we got some schools that are going back to a virtual environment for this semester.
Very good. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your coming today and speaking with us at the KBAD Forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Ricardo Villarreal, who is also running for Texas Congressional District 21. Mr. Real, you'll have Villarreal, you'll have 4 minutes for your opening statement, and then 90 seconds for a Q&A with the audience. It's all yours, sir.
Thank you very much for having me, KBAD. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Laredo, Texas. I went to medical school after high school in Guadalajara. I practiced there for a couple of years, worked in the rural setting, had my office, was able to provide medical services to people that were less fortunate and were not able to afford healthcare. I worked for the Mexican government providing healthcare. After that, I came back to San Antonio. I got an MBA in healthcare administration from Our Lady of the Lake, and joined the Army Reserve, where I was an health services officer, where I served for 8 years. During that time within the reserves, I was mobilized to Fort Hood. I have the opportunity to travel to Fort Hood from San Antonio on a weekly basis during my mobilization and travel 281 for the whole year. So I got to know a lot of the Texas Hill Country through 281. That was a great opportunity to meet folks and be able to see everybody within District 21 and look at how our values differ from the current incumbent. And I'll go back to our values in just a little bit. In addition to being in the reserves, I work in different hospitals within the local community here in San Antonio. I also worked in Hill Country Memorial Hospital in Fredericksburg. So again, I have roots within the city in terms of healthcare and also in the rural community. My work there in the different hospitals has been in quality and performance improvement and patient safety. So bringing the best of healthcare to those that we are able to serve. Within the last 15 years, that's the kind of work that I've been doing. For the past 3 years after being mobilized, I was able to earn the benefit of the GI Bill, and that brought me back to school. I went back to school to get a second master's degree. That one was going to be in leadership. That was from Golden Gate University. And then after that, I jumped into a third master's degree in public policy from University of California, Berkeley. So when people talk about public policy, I've done my homework. I don't need to use taglines. I've done the policy analysis in all these different areas. I know what's affecting our community and our district. And lastly, the fourth master's degree that I'm actually working on is public leadership from the University of San Francisco, which is helping veterans like myself be able to jump into the public service, a second service to our nation that we've already served within the military. Now we're turning it into public service within the government. My priorities is healthcare. The previous speaker and question talked about COVID. I think that's one of the top line items for me. Within our district, we have over 8,000 deaths by COVID, and we have over 750,000 people that have been infected within District 21. That's something that the incumbent has consistently declined to comment on or acknowledge, and we can go into that. But I think that the biggest thing is that within District 21, we have over 90,000 people without health insurance, and that's unacceptable. If there was expansion with Medicaid, we'd be able to cover these individuals, and for the whole state of Texas, we'd be able to cover 1.4 million people that would be eligible under Medicaid expansion. Again, my focus or my biggest priority has been healthcare, but there's other things. I'm not a one-trick pony kind of person. There's a lot of things that, as a veteran, that's something that I want to work with in terms of being able to expand the benefits and all the different programs that are out there for veterans, being able to ensure that they have mental health care, that they have social services, and that we don't have any homeless veterans within our communities. Additionally, my wife is an immigration judge, so I'm pretty well versed. Again, being from Laredo, knowing about the border security and immigration, that's something that's a big passion for me. And having my mother be a Mexican immigrant, I think that's something that I want to be focused on and be able to work with on a bipartisan basis with Republican colleagues should I get to Congress. And with that, I'll open it up to your questions.
Thank you, sir. It is time for questions. If we have any from the folks who are watching the forum today, and I don't see any, so I'll ask you one myself. The incumbent, your opponent, has talked about his great support from veterans, and I've seen him, giving out the campaign information about working with the veterans and how much they like him. Can you tell me how much you work with veterans and what you'll be able to do for veterans?
So I've worked with veterans in different aspects, but let me back up a little bit. Our current incumbent loves photo ops, and he's the first person that's going to get in front of not just veterans, but Border Patrol and anybody that he can get in front of to be able to say that he supports their rights or their benefits. I think that's a disservice to our veterans and Border Patrol and Immigration Services, because one of the things that's constant is that he's voted against different initiatives or different bills that are proportional to those different communities. I can talk about him, one of 3 people voting against the ALS Act, a disease that disproportionately affects veterans, and he voted against that. So tell me how you appreciate law enforcement. How do you appreciate veterans if you're voting against their interests? I'm a veteran. I can talk to veterans, and I'm able to serve them because it benefits all of us.
Okay, thank you. I see no more questions, so you have about 20 seconds, sir, to give your final thoughts.
Absolutely. Chip Roy is running on healthcare freedom. I already talked about my priority in terms of COVID. Healthcare freedom is anti-mask, anti-vax. He talks about veterans issues. I'm a veteran and have seen it firsthand, the disservice he's done to us. He talks about immigration and loves taking pictures at the river, but he's done nothing about it except find a way to obstruct and not get anything done in terms of immigration. And he also talks about taking back schools, which is a code word for being against critical race theory and LGBTQIA rights for children. As
Okay,
a
thank
father
you.
of two, I will do everything against Chip Roy and defeat him in November. He's someone that he does not want to face me as a candidate.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Villarreal. We really appreciate your coming and joining us today. Thank you
My
much.
pleasure.
Next, we have Claudia Zapata, and she is also running for Texas Congressional District 21. Good afternoon, Claudia, and you'll have 4 minutes and then 90 seconds for Q&A.
All right, thank you. Hi, Jeff. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I hope that everyone's having a great Sunday evening. Thank you so much for having this and hosting this for us. I really appreciate it. And it's always fun hearing from the other candidates in the other races as well. So my name is Claudia Andriana Zapata, and I am running for U.S. Congress in Texas's 21st Congressional District against Chip Roy. I come from a long line of strong, hard-headed Tejanas who have instilled in me the core values of hard work, taking care of others, and putting family first. And that is truly how I have decided to run this race, is by putting and making sure that I am honoring my Tejana roots and values by fighting for us and by fighting for rural communities of color. I am a current community organizer. I've organized alongside many of you in Kyle, Buda, San Marcos, Dripping Springs, Wimberley, you name it, I have been there. I was a former legislative aide in HD 46 at the Texas Capitol for 2 years. And I specifically wrote and developed Health and Human Services policy, which I'm very, very proud of. And then for the last 4 years, I worked at the Texas Health and Human Services Commission as a workforce and budget analyst. And in that role, it was my duty to deal with the effects of our poor Texas leadership that we have at the moment. And I had to use whatever available resources and infrastructure we currently had in order to serve those that are in assisted living facilities, nursing facilities, childcare, whether it be residential or business, or those that are within foster care as well, or state hospitals, to make sure that we had the resources for our employees, for our state employees, to be able to carry out their duties in the field and answering abuse, neglect, and exploitation cases. One of the things that I am most proud of that I was able to do was work alongside our Deputy Executive Commissioner and our Chief Policy and Regulatory Officer to be able to go down to the legislator and explain that we have a backlog of cases, whether they're abuse and neglect in foster care or in nursing facilities, because of the high turnover that stems from a lack of pay. So we were able to gather this data and go down to the legislator and fight for what is called recruitment and retention dollars. So it's basically like an added bonus after your check or after the taxes are taken out. And so I'm very proud that I was able to do that and advocate for Texans all across the state. I am fighting for food accessibility. 98% of TX21 are located within USDA defined food deserts, meaning individuals do not live within 20 miles of a grocery store. Just last year alone, there were over 115,000 food insecure families living within the district. I am fighting for universal health care. But not just insurance, because what good is insurance if you don't have a doctor's office or a hospital to be able to actually use it at? In rural Texas, we face a lack of that crucial healthcare infrastructure. And that is something that I am fighting for more preventative and routine care clinics. A lot of the times when we talk about rural hospitals or rural healthcare, we talk about it in terms of hospitals. But I always tell people, as far as I'm concerned, a hospital is the last place you want to end up at. So what is it that we can do to treat and help treat individuals prior to them needing to go to an emergency room? And then I'm also fighting for a clean land, air, and water. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So we do have a question from Noah Johnson. When elected, how will you address healthcare for rural areas?
Well, I like that we're manifesting the when elected, because we have to put that energy out there to make sure it happens. So when elected, there are multiple unique ideas that I have in terms of being able to address and increase and create these routine and preventative healthcare clinics for rural Texans. So for example, one of the last questions had to deal with veterans, and which is important because I believe there's 9.8% or almost 10% of TX21 are veterans. And a lot of them either do not go to the VA because it's super far, and the only one that they are near is in San Antonio, and it's like 2.5, 3 hours away from them. But I have lived experiences such as knowing that VFW clinics or VFWs, VFW posts often serve as a community hub. There's resources that are provided there. There's a lot of community work that's provided there. And so I thought, like, why don't we have this idea where we are able to create a federal grant or federal program that sets up routine and preventative healthcare clinics at VFW posts? Because you can find a VFW post almost literally anywhere. You can be out in the middle of West Texas and there will be a VFW post, if not anything else. And so we have to make sure that we're using our current infrastructure to the best of our ability. In addition to that, I also have this idea of what if we had this program, much like Teach for America, but call it Care for America.
Finish that thought.
Okay, a program similar to Teach for America, but Care for America, in the sense where we would have individuals be able to train and study within the district in order for us to be able to open more healthcare clinics.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zapata. We really appreciate your joining us this afternoon.
All right, thank you.
Thank you and good luck. Thank you. Next up, we're moving to Congressional District 35. Greg Casar is our first speaker for that office. Sir, you'll have 4 minutes and then to make your statement, and then 90 seconds for a Q&A. It's all yours.
Thanks so much for having me. Good evening, KBAD. I'm Greg Casar, and I'm running for Congress in Texas 35 because working Texans from Travis down to Hayes through Comal and Bexar County deserve a progressive champion who will deliver on reproductive rights, on good jobs, on addressing the climate crisis, on raising wages, and on getting us to a better Texas. Before I was an elected official, I was a community organizer, working alongside working folks, construction workers, restaurant workers, custodians, to demand better from our government. And I saw how when we really come together, even when we're sometimes confronted by really entrenched special interests or some of the biggest corporations in the state, we can make a big difference. That's why I ran for city council. I was elected as the youngest person ever to serve at Austin City Hall. And I worked to raise wages from $7.25 to $15 an hour for every single working person working for the city or under city contracts or city land. Those are lots of people who live not just within the city of Austin, but also who are coming up from Kyle and from Buda. I worked to pass some of the most significant and largest affordable housing elections in the history, not just of Central Texas, but of the entire state, so that we can make sure we have affordable housing so we stop pushing people so far out of the city. I worked to take care of people during the COVID-19 pandemic and during the winter storm. I worked really closely with folks like Representative Erin Zwiener and with our county judges and with the city's public health department to make sure that we were able to give vaccines to people when they were inside the city of Austin, regardless of whether or not that's where their address was. Because we know we have so many folks, especially people in working class industries, serving food, cooking food, building buildings, essential workers, grocery store workers who needed access to the vaccine. And their clinic might have been in Hayes County. But the fact of the matter is, if during the day, when it's the most convenient time for them to get their shot, they were in the city of Austin, we were pushing the Austin Public Health Department to make sure we were getting shots into those communities. But now I recognize, and I think we all recognize, how important it is to have somebody to deliver in Congress. Because during that same pandemic, the paid sick days law that I authored and passed in Austin, and also that we passed in San Antonio, it got blocked by the Texas Supreme Court in the middle of a global pandemic. During the middle of the winter storm, during this climate crisis when people were dying in their homes, we had Ted Cruz getting on a plane flying to the beach. the governor trying to blame windmills. We need somebody that's going to step up for our community and make sure that we stop having these federal oversight bodies getting kicked out of the state by the governor, ignored, and instead that we address both our grid and the climate crisis. We want to make sure that we can pass paid sick time as a federal policy for every single working person, regardless of what this Republican Texas Supreme Court says. Bring investments home to our community. Bring the transportation investments and infrastructure investments necessary to our entire corridor. I worked to pass and design Austin's $7 billion new rail and subway plan, but I think it's also critical that we have rail lines that run and bring back the Lone Star Rail concept that runs from Austin down through Hays County into San Antonio. We need to connect our communities, have a progressive and bold vision, and that's exactly what I want to bring to the United States Congress. I've been so inspired by people's resilience these last 2 years when people's basic rights have been under threat, as people have been fighting back against voter suppression and constant discrimination. And I believe we can bring that energy to Washington, D.C. To really make sure our government is being responsive to what the majority of working Texans need. The last thing I'll say is I've also been so inspired by what progressives in Congress have been able to do during the pandemic. Representative Cori Bush went and staged a sit-in, a sleep out on the steps of the Capitol, and just one voice started a movement that got the president to extend the eviction moratorium. And I want to be that kind of a leader that isn't just one vote in Washington, but really delivers for everyday people with my voice representing you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your opening statement. And we do have a question from Noah Johnson, who asks, how will you work to help our homeless veterans?
Noah, thank you for the question, because so much of that is a challenge of discrimination. We know we actually have funds, federal funds, to house veterans, but so many folks are experiencing homelessness. What I've found is that actually a lot of landlords reject the vouchers to house veterans experiencing homelessness. So we went and actually sued the state government to block the discriminatory policy that allows these veterans experiencing homelessness to be discriminated against. We should pass a federal policy that says you can't discriminate against people paying with housing vouchers. And we need to fund the services that veterans deserve, from mental health care to physical health care, and frankly, have Medicare for all so that every single person can have the health care resources that they need. So thank you so much for that question. I've been endorsed by the Progressive Caucus of the Democratic Party, and I believe that they've really tried to lead on that issue of housing and homelessness, along with folks like Senator Elizabeth Warren, but especially would want your support and your vote.
Thank you. We have another question from Christina Depperschmidt. Can you speak to congressional stock trading and getting Wall Street out of our Congress?
I fully support the bill recently filed by Senator Ossoff to ban members of Congress from trading in stock. We have to rebuild trust in our government, and a key way to doing that is having these strong ethics rules. I also believe and would support a constitutional amendment to end Citizens United revolving door politics and make sure that it's really clear that that's why I'm not taking corporate PAC checks or Wall Street money either.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Kassar. We appreciate your coming and joining us today, and best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, KBAD.
Thank you. And next up, we have Eddie Rodriguez, who is running for Texas Congressional District 35. And sir, you'll have 4 minutes for your opening comments and 90 seconds for a question and answer period.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to start my timer too. I want to make sure that I don't go over. So again, thank you for that.
You're just checking on me. You're just checking on me, right?
That's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing. I'm very pleased to say I was block walking in Buda today with my wife and several volunteers. So I was really excited to be there today. Again, my name's Eddie Rodriguez. I'm a little bit of background on me. I am from McAllen, Texas, down in the Rio Grande Valley. My parents, I come from working class people. My dad worked for the USDA in the fields, literally helping scientists, but in the lab, but really just working out in the field for the most part. And my mother was an attendance clerk at a junior high school that I happened to go to, my sister and I. And I'm the first in my family to go to college. And that was something that my parents instilled in me. Actually, what they instilled in me was a belief in the American dream. And I believed it. And that dream being that if you work hard, good things will come to you and you will do better than we did. And I believe that. And I'm running for Congress because I don't know if that, I think that dream is fading for many, many Americans, for working class people, for the middle class is shrinking. And I want to go to Congress to fight for working folks, whether it's raising the minimum wage. There definitely Build Back Better. There's lots of things in there that would really help working people. Medicare for all. These are things that I want to fight for when I go to Washington D.C., among other things. But as I said, I was the first to go to college, and that was a source of great pride for my family, and I'm happy to. That's what brought me to Austin, Texas, and so I've been representing House District 51 in East Austin, South Austin, Southeast Travis County for 19 years, almost 20 years. It'll be the end of my term will be 20 years. And I've been a progressive fighter for not only the people of my district, but for, I believe, the state as a whole. I've been in the minority the entire time. When I first got elected, coincidentally, the Republicans had taken over the House, and the first time since Reconstruction. So I've been an Austin progressive Democrat in a hostile environment for the better part of 20 years, and I've still been able to pass progressive, meaningful legislation, although I've been in the minority. I believe to be really considered a progressive, you have to make progress, and I get things done. That's my reputation in the House, even in the hostile environment. As I said, I'll talk about a few bills that I've worked on in the past, and then I'd like to talk about just this past session, things that I'm really, really proud of that took a lot of time to pass. I passed a bill that allowed for 700,000 more kids to get a free breakfast at school. That took several sessions to pass because it was seen as welfare by my Republican colleagues. But I worked hard, got it through, and now we have 700,000 more kids, probably more now, that qualify for the free breakfast program. And as you all probably know, for some kids, this school breakfast, school lunch, sometimes is the only meal that they're going to get. And so this is really important, something that I'm very proud of having to do. And also something that I'm really proud of and I believe is very progressive is before I passed legislation, a child can only take a certain number of high school credit, or rather college credit hours in high school. I busted that cap. Now students can take as many college credit hours as they can. And that's really good for the student going to college, less time, money to borrow for going to college, and maybe they'll be ready for the workforce right after high school. Last session, I provided a real solution for the homelessness crisis that we're facing here in Austin. It was specific to Austin by increasing the Community First Village, which provides permanent and supportive housing for people in Austin, and it's expanded to 1,500 more people. Also, I fought Greg Abbott and his Republican cronies. He was holding $11 billion hostage that were supposed to go directly to public schools. It was federal money. And I passed an amendment on the appropriations to pass that to directly to public schools. And finally, I'll say I was one of the leaders that led a group of Democrats to Washington, D.C. to fight for our right to vote and our freedom to vote. And I think that's time.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. We do have a question from Sandra Tenorio. Says, Eddie, can you explain your policy differences on homelessness between you and your opponent?
Well, I'll just say, Sandra, I'll just talk about what I worked on. And so I mentioned the Community First Village, which is really important. It's really providing permanent supportive housing for folks. Right now, the first bill that I passed, Sandra, was 10 years ago. And I passed that with Senator Kirk Watson. And it allowed for basically this nonprofit, which is a really wonderful organization called Noble Loaves and Fishes, to basically buy land and pay no taxes on it whatsoever so that they can afford to build these homes. And they've since raised a lot of money. They don't take any city money or state money or county money. And right now on the ground, there's about 358, I believe, homes that are on the ground right now. And again, with this expansion, the bill that I passed, it will allow for 2 more campuses that'll equal about 1,500 more permanent housing and supportive housing with clinics and all that in the coming years. So that's I think is that's how I have addressed that issue.
Next up, what is your response to Democratic leaders who perceived your recent mailer to be dehumanizing to the homelessness population? Feel free to contact me directly as well. And that's from Alyssa Garza.
Thank you, Alyssa. And I'm going to write that down. Listen, I have worked on the homelessness issues and affordable housing since before I was even a House member. I mean, I'm very passionate about this. I have deep compassion. I don't believe what was happening in the city of Austin. So I guess a couple of years ago, and still happening to some degree, was compassionate and humanizing to the homeless. Allowing people to camp in public places, on sidewalks and in other public places, was not safe for the homeless population. And it wasn't really safe for the community at large. The people that I work with, like at Community First Village, they didn't like that way of handling homelessness. My mailer just simply talked about what I tried to do to address the homelessness issue, and that I think the policy of just quote unquote decriminalizing homelessness and allowing for public encampments isn't the answer. It's not an answer. And that's all that mail piece was. And I just think that it may have hit a nerve.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your answer. Appreciate your coming today and speaking with us at our public forum for KBAD. We had a couple of people who we thought might show up, who I don't believe did. A couple of late registrants, Rebecca Viagran for Texas Congressional District 35 and Rebecca Bell Medero for State Board of Education District 5. Neither is in our waiting room right now, so we'll go ahead and close. And I would like to, on behalf of the Kyle Buda-Area Democrats, thank all the candidates who participated here today and those who weren't able to make it. I know that it's hard on a weekend to get to something like this, but thank you very much for showing up for those who did. It takes great courage and commitment to run for office. And your candidacy, all of your candidacies, demonstrate that small d democracy is alive and well in Hays County. Thank you and good evening.